everyone. I'd like to call to order the Silver Lake Regional School Committee meeting Thursday, May 12th at about 6:04, please. And we'll start with public participation. If there's anybody in the public that would like to speak. Oh my gosh, okay? No? All righty. Approval of minutes.
Are you guys all set? Are you sure nobody wants to speak? I don't want to start the minutes.
I'm thinking of speaking for the union, for the school, for the paraprofessionals, so
Now is the time for the public to speak.
She's speaking for the union, so would she do it later?
Paraprofessionals for the, yes. So is that now?
Separate from John?
If you'd like to, yes.
Sure.
Go ahead.
You mean 31? No. But
If you're
John usually has
comfortable there, that's
doesn't he?
fine.
What if John speaks? SLEA.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Little, and I'm a classroom paraprofessional at the middle school at Sel Survey. As you know, the Silver Lake Education Association and the district are about to begin meeting with the state mediator to try to resolve our contract, which expires at the end of June. I want to take a moment to talk to you about some of the things paraprofessionals do in our school and how our roles have been expanding. Instructional paraprofessionals work side by side with teachers to support special education students, both in general and special education classrooms. But we are not limited to this role. We go far beyond, offering social, emotional, and academic assistance to all students. Whether we are directly assigned to work one-on-one or with a group, our main focus is to help every student. We are team players. Working closely with the special education teacher, we familiarize ourselves with student IEPs to best support the inclusion classes and assist regular education teachers to implement accommodations. We perform many duties, including instructing academic support classes, proctoring MCAS tests, and at times covering classes. In addition, although not getting paid for it, we often arrive to work early and stay late for faculty and training meetings, which are not offered during the day at times. And we also run after-school clubs and help out in every school day. We support the important role of what the teachers do. We are educators. It's time we are compensated for that. Paraprofessionals at Silver Lake currently start at $16.57 an hour. In the community, fast food restaurants and retail outlets are typically offering starting salaries between $17 and $19 or more an hour. The salary offered at Silver Lake paraprofessionals is not competitive and is not consistent with the cost of living. According to the Mass Teachers Association Living Wage Calculator, the annual living wage in our school district is roughly $37,000 a year. Paraprofessionals at Silver Lake start off earning just below $20,000 a year. The gap is indeed wide, with most paraprofessionals having to work and take on a second job. We are here tonight in unity to open the line of communication to help bridge that gap. Paraprofessionals serve a vital role in Silver Lake's success with their special education department. Special education programs run most efficiently with the proper support staff in place. And that we can successfully teach all our students, keeping them in district and not out of district. And this ultimately saves Silver Lake School District a lot of money. We are worth it. I don't know if the community is aware that paraprofessionals are the only Silver Lake employee that do not get paid over the free school vacation weeks that occur in December, February, and April. Other support staff, like secretaries, custodians, and even cafeteria workers, do get paid those vacation days. We are asking for what we firmly believe is a fair and reasonable request, paid vacation. Next to teachers, we have the greatest impact on our students at Silver Lake. Silver Lake has a strong and dedicated paraprofessional staff. Most of us here have well over 10 years' experience that we offer to our schools every day, to our teachers. We love working with students. We love working with your sons and daughters. I urge the committee to please recognize our commitment in everything that we do for the students at Silver Lake by quickly settling our contract with a fair salary increase and paid vacation time. I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Little. And I will just say, we are in the midst of negotiation and going into mediation, so we are not able to comment whatsoever with what you just said. But I appreciate your statement. Okay. Anybody else from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public participation for the evening. Approval of minutes?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our April 7th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Can I make a friendly amendment to the minutes before approval? Just under, well, what page is it? Second to last page at the top, where it says section 4, where it's talking about the peer mentorship program the high school is looking into. Can you just please have it noted that the Anti-Defamation League is like sponsoring or mentoring that program? It's not listed in the minutes. Second to last page. So I think it's the fourth page at the top.
I withdraw my motion and I make a new motion to accept the minutes of April 7th, 2022 with Summers' amendment.
Second.
Any other comments or changes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anybody? No? All righty. Jim, I think we move on to you.
Yes, a little bit of both tonight, so thank you very much. I'll start with middle school. So we recently had our geography 18 students from across the 6 teams at middle school came and competed in our national geography meet. And the 3 finalists were Lyla King, Deacon Burdett, and Christopher Jones. And our congratulations to Dr. Christopher Jones, who is our champion for our geography meet. And I want to congratulate all who participated in the meet, and they should be very proud of their efforts and the hard work they put in. Come out and be an extracurricular and really try to extend themselves. So congratulations to all of them, and to Matt McKenzie for supporting and facilitating. We have our Math MCAS coming up on May 17th and May 14th. Our Sunday MCAS will be on May 24th and 25th. Our spring concerts coming up May 31st. Our Evening of Excellence is coming up on June 6th. This is our chance that we give back to our 8th graders and present them some accolades for their hard work over their years at the middle school. So that will be on June 6th. And we have Step Up Day coming up on June 10th. So Step Up Day is June 10th.
We always do.
Step Up Day, Move Up Day, that's when all of our students come from our 3 elementaries from across the town. They come up for the first time and they become a part of our Silver Lake family. We kind of introduce them to the school. Before then, I have the letters coming in to be this week. We will You get a chance to see the teacher. The teacher will talk to them about different activities the team's going to do next year. It's really a chance to, like, for the students to get excited about the middle school and kind of embrace what we have to offer. So again, that's June 10th. We're excited about that. That'll be coming up. Our farewell dance. That's for our 8th grade farewell dance. That'll be on June 21st. And then field day, which Leslie's very good. Is on June 22nd, and that's our field day. And that's it for middle school. Moving on to the high school. So a little bit longer, but here we go. So donations. So we have a $150 donation from Linda Redding in memory of former SL District employee Brian Guerra, Margaret Neal, and Mary Chilton and Sherry Appleton. And this is when the library can use as needed. We also have a donation of books. Silver Diary of Freeman Colby by Mark Burnett from Mr. Patrick Flaherty of Braintree. Books are about the Civil War soldiers. There was also a New Hampshire teacher donated by a relative of the illustrator in graphic novels, who was a cousin nephew to Silver Lake. So I ask for your approval of the donations.
I'll move that we approve the 2 donations mentioned by Mr. McField.
Second that and say the prerequisite, I assume we're going to send a thank you card.
Is in her notes. She will send the thank you notes. So thank you. Oh,
Jim, I just want to, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Carpentry. There's an annual school committee approval this meeting. Attached signed contract with customer that Mr. Glass recommended for our outdoor construction project for the 22-23 school year. This is a Kingston resident looking for a detached garage. These members can make the residents who receive the best educational fit for our program. There's also a readiness element at play, and the customer has everything lined up and ready for the plans completed for us to start in September. And I was standing back for the carpentry and ready to get them back off campus after building the MS garage for the last 2 years. Big thank you from MS to Elliot and our students for the wonderful job they did. And saying approved, the contracts need scheduled committee chair signature on the back.
Paul, I'll make the motion.
Please.
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve the home construction agreement for the CTE program per Elliot's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Any questions for this? Sure, go ahead.
So again, I'll bring up another broken record statement I made a few years ago, and I know Jason knows it's coming. So first of all, thanks to the CTE program for developing this project. Thanks to the CTE committee, I assume, for reviewing the project. Chris, did it come through CTE?
It does not need to come to the program.
Okay. So a few years ago, I asked about the evaluation and selection criteria for projects that occur in the community. I specifically requested that the CTE committee and the school get together and develop specific evaluation criteria based somewhat on need. I don't know if that's happened. Do you know if that's happened, Jim?
Yeah.
Question. I can certainly take the question down and talk to Michaela and have her get back to you if that's all right.
I might be able to answer that one. I think we've gone through this in the past, and need is not one of the criteria. The criteria are driven by the CTE at the state level in terms of the educational opportunities provided by the project, which is where consistently, I think, as I've been here, it tends to be that barn, that shed, that garage kind of project that doesn't have all the fancy finish work, that if students are a little off kilter on a window, it can be adjusted and it isn't going to be, obtrusive to an inside of a house, for example. So that's why we don't want to go into houses and do projects. And need, I don't think, is one of the criteria.
Okay, so I'll just make at least my statement again, is that I believe this program should have a need-based analysis associated with the criteria for selection. Essentially, what a private homeowner is getting is they're getting a project with materials plus a certain amount of cost. Correct?
They're getting labor.
They're getting labor.
They pay the cost.
They pay the
They pay
cost.
material costs, yeah.
And they're paying with no labor.
The labor is the students and the supervision by the instructors to those parts that they're able to handle.
Right.
You know, if there's plumbing or something that needs to get done,
Yeah.
obviously that's a third-party hire by the independent person.
So I understand that this is, Madam Chair, an educational opportunity for our students, and I certainly want them to have that, but there are a lot of projects in the community that are, I would argue, could be more highly needed based on people's inability to pay, based on community projects that we should be doing instead of constructing private homeowners' garages for essentially free labor. So I would request that we table this request until we can get more information on the selection criteria from the CTE program on how they selected this particular project.
I am going to ask if anyone's aware of the time element here. Go ahead, Christine.
I just wanted to add that CTE students do many community programs.
I know they do.
I was just wondering, so they do many of those programs.
I know, and they do a great job at them. They really do.
So, I'm not going to second the motion to table.
Yep.
I will say that when we do reorganization, I have a very strong desire to be part of the CTE subcommittee, and I'll make sure that I bring that concern to the subcommittee, and I'll also double back with MAVA, the Association of Vocational Schools, to see if that is something allowable by the state. I'll make that promise to you.
So just for the record, I'm going to vote no on this, not because I don't think it's a good educational opportunity, because I do not think we should be paying for private homeowners' garages without a basis on need. So, and I've said this several years ago when a project like this came up, I asked the CTE committee to do something about evaluating this, and it has not been done to date, and so that's where I stand on these projects. And I do think the CTE program does a great job on a lot of community projects. And if this was a private homeowners project that had demonstrated need, I would be at a different attitude about it.
I think Elliot was trying to make it tonight, but is ill. So I think he's hoping to make the July meeting.
I was just
We're
going to
our
say.
next one, to give us a really more comprehensive view, because we had questions
Yep.
2 meetings ago regarding some of the program statistics. How many enrollees, what are the popular programs, where are the kids going for college, that kind of stuff. So he'll have that for July, I believe.
Okay, yep, I'll make sure of it too.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
I think there was a
You
motion
voted,
on the
right?
floor.
Yeah, I
Yep.
can make a motion.
Yep.
And I seconded.
You second?
I guess kind of, you bring up some interesting points, and I might not have been on the committee when you brought them
Right.
up the first time, and you have me thinking now. And so I kind of would like to see a lot of everything you want to echo pretty much what you're saying. I think that it needs to be looked at.
So just, if you may, Madam Chair, just give me some space. We haven't had a project like this in probably 3 years.
2.
Because we had, first of all, I mean, the great C word, we had COVID. But before that, we had some projects on the campus that were really great projects. And we've had other community projects, like I think, I mean, you know a lot about them, but like fixing the gazebo on the town green in Kingston, things like that, which are great community projects. And I'm not suggesting that residential projects shouldn't be eliminated from the program, because I think they need to get experience with homeowners and working with homeowners and meeting homeowners' expectations and all the things that they might experience when they go out into the community, as in the trades that they'll eventually be in. All I've asked for, and it hasn't come up again because this project hasn't come up like this before in the last 2 or 3 years, is that if we're going to do a private project, then it has to have some demonstration of financial or equitable need, as opposed to just selecting a private homeowner that arguably could fund this project themselves, but they're offering it up to the students and the school to do for them for some of the reasons that Chris has articulated. But that criteria of demonstration of need has not been brought into the evaluation criteria, and so I would like to see that, and I appreciate that, Jason. But that's why I'm going to vote no on this, because there's no demonstration of need for this private homeowner. And don't get me wrong, I know who this homeowner is, but there's nothing to do with it. Just like any private project, I would say that too, so.
Do we know, we don't know the timeline on this at all, when this, if we approve it tonight, when they're gonna start swinging hammers?
It's a fall project, so you need to get things in line ahead of time for the project in the fall. You know, I think they're required to have a bathroom on site, and materials need to be there for September to the proper insurance needs to be in place to cover liability with students on the property. Those kind of things aren't going to happen on August 15th meeting for September 1st, so.
Is that our next meeting, is August 15th?
No, I just don't.
July.
It's a July meeting, but I don't know what Elliot's timeline is to kind of work with the homeowner to get that stuff, or what that list is.
So I guess for me, Madam Chair, I'm a little frustrated because I understand that there may be some structural issues with the program that Jason suggested he might look into if he gets involved in CET. But the CTE director knows that this was brought up the last time a private project came up, and it's not addressed in this application.
Well, again, I think the CTE criteria for selection doesn't include need. So
Right.
in defense of Elliot, if it's not part of the selection criteria of a project
But
to fit the student's need,
Yeah.
it is not part of the evaluation process.
From the state.
From the state, yeah.
You're saying state
Yeah,
required.
yeah, it's state required, yeah. Because we've gone through this and we've had this conversation, because we're a regional school. Why don't more projects end up sort of in Halifax? And part of that issue is we can be in Halifax 20 minutes away, and every day the kids have to go 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So from a time perspective, they lose time of learning because we have to get out to another site so far. The last one I think we had off-site was on Lake Street, which I think was, from my understanding, a great project location and scope, because it was no time lost learning to drive a mile down the street, and it fit the criteria that we were looking for. Smaller projects that I think they've done, like dugouts and so forth at some of the ball fields, those are sort of, I think, end-of-year projects from my understanding, once the primary teaching project is done. So it's not just that they sort of stop when the project's done, they do fit things in, but again, the learning objectives need to fit, and that's why it typically is exterior construction, not interior construction. You know, it's the framing, it's the roofing, it's that kind of stuff. And the homeowner obviously gets the foundations poured or whatever it needs for that kind of stuff, and permitting and all that. So that's the leg room up in front for them. But need, I don't think, is one of them, unfortunately. And I don't know how many projects Elliot got this year. I didn't hear a list. As a CTE member, I didn't hear he had 10 requests or 3 requests. I don't think the list is that long. So the choices are pretty limited, from my understanding.
I'm going to make a suggestion as one member. First of all, Karen, can we make a note to put on the July agenda to have a discussion? Hopefully Elliot can join us for that. Let's hash it out in July. I'm going to suggest that we consider approving this project because it's already gone through a process. If we're going to change the process, I wouldn't want to try and do that now, right before September, right before, you know, the kids come back. I think it's certainly worthy of investigating, absolutely. Let's have Elliot, my suggestion is, let's have Elliot come in, have this as a July topic, but in the meantime, move forward with what has been selected as an appropriate project for this coming school year. That's my thought as one individual.
I just want to add that that's exactly what I was told the last time one of these projects came through 3 years ago. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that here we are 3 years later with the same reason for having to vote it tonight, because it went through a process. I asked for the process to be reevaluated, and here we have the same thing again, and now we're being asked to approve a project again because of timing. So I'm sorry, Chris, I know we have a disagreement.
We can't change the state
so-
process, though. We can't change their criteria.
So
That's bigger than what this committee can control.
I don't think we've ever looked into that.
I believe we had Elliot answer us on that one. But we can get Elliot to re-verify that.
Well, some of it might be a matter of, is there an opportunity for more transparency around, like, the deadline to submit projects is February 1st, and then Elliot comes to our meeting and says, hey, we've got 15 submissions, we're evaluating them now, here's the criteria we're using based on state mandates, and then we hear, because I do recognize, and I was not a part of those conversations, I have no idea what the criteria are to submit, and I could see where somebody is getting $40,000 free labor. If the estimated cost of the project is $80,000 and the total materials is $40,000, then they're getting $40,000 of free labor, but they're also doing a service to provide an opportunity for students to learn, and, you know, but to be able to compare to what maybe other districts do as well, because other towns, or other vocational programs are also regionalized and might draw from multiple towns, and is there a mileage ratio, like we only do them within a certain mileage, because I do think it's also important to consider we are a tri-town region, and if projects are primarily coming to residents of Kingston, that doesn't feel equitable to other communities that we serve. So I think there's a good conversation to be had there.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we have that conversation in July, and it's the will of the committee whether we move forward with this or not now. I'm going to chalk up COVID as derailing getting some of that vetted, but I think we'll stick to July, we'll have a strong discussion about it, we'll have a better understanding. If somebody would like to make a motion, I would entertain it.
We already did. Chris
made a-
made it and
yeah.
I seconded.
You did?
So we
Okay,
just
to
need to
approve.
vote.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
All those opposed? Okay. Thank you.
So, next is a field trip request. The class of 2023 are requesting to host a class trip to Six Flags, New England, to celebrate class unity and spirit. The students will depart at 7:30 a.m. and return at 6 p.m. The price will be $51.99, includes transportation, ticket, lunch, and a drink. The class will cover a large portion of the cost. Any student requiring financial assistance would not be expected to pay. In addition to the staff chaperones, the class will seek for your parents to help and support the field trip.
Motion to approve the field trip to Six Flags so the kids can have a little fun.
I second it.
All right. Any further discussion?
Just
Okay.
one quick question, Jim. I didn't hear if you set a date for that, or if there was one provided, or it just was general request.
They don't have a date
Okay.
in here, so maybe they were looking to get it approved. I'm sure it's going to be.
This year, though?
Yes.
Okay, that's what just was unclear. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor? Thank you.
Silver Lake High School has had a blood drive on May 4th. Our support of the American Red Cross Blood Donor Program for the school not only helps save lives, but it gives our students the opportunity to give back to their community and utilize their leadership, social skills. Pleased to inform you that our school has collected 31 units of blood, qualifying us for $250 in scholarships for graduating seniors and an active participant in the school's blood drive program. The scholarship will be awarded to the college university and will ask the recipient to use for his or her higher education. The scholarship will be applied for the fall of 2022 semester. Our unified sports track team celebrated its last home meet on May 5th versus Carver. The school and community support has been amazing. Many student clubs and activities show up to support our students with banners and pride and help form the best cheer tunnel on the South Shore. Senior prom will take place on May 26th at the Whitmere Beach Club and Hotel in Harwichport, Massachusetts. Graduation is on June 3rd at 6 p.m., rain date June 4th at 6 p.m. All members of the school committee are invited to attend. The invitation was sent earlier this week. Today is the last day of AP exams, and we prepare for the math MCAS next week and science in June. So that's the.
Jim, do you need a motion for that Red Cross donation request? I don't know.
I guess it wouldn't hurt to ask. I think it's a scholarship, and therefore I'm not sure
Okay.
it's really a donation. It's a scholarship made from the Red Cross to the college. I don't know if it funnels through the school, but maybe it would be safe when David's not here. Could I ask that? Should we? I don't know.
Sure, the agenda does say donation, yeah, possible vote, so.
So I'll make a motion to accept the Red Cross donation as a result of the blood drive, if needed.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And lastly, I'd just like to say, and I know the sentiment I can all share, but we share the sentiment, the support that our paraprofessionals give our students and our schools is phenomenal. What they do for us is exceptional. They do it every day, and without thought that they're there educating and supporting our students. So I know we all feel similarly, so I just want to say thank you while they're here for everything they do for our schools next year.
All righty. Okay, moving on. Director of Business, Christine.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're just going to quickly go over our financial report. As you know, our budget is financially surpassed and is still improving there. There are some areas that we saw earlier in the year where we had some struggles, but we were focused on making sure that we can make the budget work as a whole. There are a handful of areas where there are some small deficits that we have absorbed in the categories. Keep in mind, we're doing the budget, it's our best estimate at the time. It's things get harder. So we work with the funds in our budget to try to do the best that we can. Some areas that we're still keeping an eye on include utilities. We're just finishing up getting our April bills, and we realize that April was a little chillier than normal, so we weren't able to shut the heat off. So we're still kind of dealing with that and see where we're going to end up. There is a deficit financially of $20,000 at the high school for gas. That will decrease, but it won't be eliminated. But the area itself will be able to absorb that deficit. Other areas of maintenance, where maintenance is an area where we always run into some struggles towards the end of the year. Because as things happen, we have to take care of them. Things that we can't even imagine would be happening. Our valve and somebody walking across the building, that goes and needs to take care of it. It has to be done that way. So, but fortunately, there's enough in our budget to be able to manage that, and we're now, again, maybe we're going to be at the end of the year, trying to capture all of our costs, making sure we're completing all those missions that we said we would. We've made our purchases, we've paid that money, but we're trying to make sure we're going to be able to be a little more planning to be in. But unless there are any questions, that's all I have to say.
I do have one question. It just jumped out at me, so I'm just curious. There's a balance left in the substitute lines for both the middle and the high school, and just because I have kids in both in school, I hear all the time that there's teachers missing and there's no substitute, so I'm assuming the reason that there's money in the account is lack of bodies to fill the position and not because we haven't funded it properly.
I think it's probably a combination of things where, as you mentioned, not being able to get bodies. And this year we've actually used some long building-based subs in each one of our buildings, so we try to make that as efficient as we can. But we have struggled to get substitutes. So that could be a reason why there is a balance, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I figured, but I just...
Can I ask a question regarding substitutes? Do we let the public in the district know how to become a substitute? There may be people in the district who would enjoy having that sort of interaction, having that role. You know, until I sat on a school committee, I never understood how, I don't know where I thought they came from. I think, you know, God blessed us with them or something, I don't know. But I never understood till I was on a school committee that if I had the time on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that maybe I could apply for it and be a substitute in a building. I never knew that. So do we reach out to the population, the parent population?
We advertise on our website, and we also advertise on School Spring.
Which nobody checks.
Beyond that, Christine, we
And
have
we keep a master list of all those folks that have said, yes,
Where's that come from, isn't it?
I'm interested.
Yeah, but it's not like-
And then sometimes.
I wouldn't have a clue.
So there are costs that would be substitutes.
Yeah.
So if 5 people are willing to give another time for it to do that, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful. But we do try to keep that list as up to date as possible. Then we, substitutes can sign up to face off, there's another sign up to face off. So they can see at a glance what is available, and they sign up to come in those days. So it's not that you used to be getting a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning. That still happens sometimes, depending on the need. But I believe we do have, we do reach out to people, and we do try to keep that list as up to date as possible.
Okay, all right. And I don't know if maybe that's an orientation thing that could actually, while you have the parents of the incoming, you know, 8th graders coming into, you know, 9th grade. I'm just throwing out suggestions, because I know until I sat on a school committee, I really didn't understand that there was an opportunity there. So,
I have a question, just following on that, if you don't mind. I know some of my kids have actually had very young, like maybe even college students. I mean, do you have to have a degree to be a substitute teacher? Maybe they were working on a grad degree or something?
Who's an HR person?
Okay. And are they, but a substitute could be for math, so obviously you would want someone with a math, not just a body to fill a chair, but someone who knows something about.
I cannot confirm getting experts in those fields.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to
This is
answer.
actually something that we discussed at our last meeting.
And I wasn't here.
It's also a major conversation happening at the national level.
Okay.
At the NSBA conference in San Diego, there was an entire breakout session on the teacher shortage in the United States. These aren't my numbers, but the numbers that are being used is that this crisis of not having enough teachers or substitutes is going to extend the next 5 to 10 years potentially.
Right.
And unfortunately, in the pipeline, in our teacher preparatory programs right now, we're under the need by about 40%. And 70% of educators have considered leaving the field within the last year. So we have a perfect storm right now of trying to get qualified people in front of students, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to address the pay for substitute teachers, and we're looking at living wages and other ideas like that about how do we maintain proper staffing levels and put the most highly qualified people in front of our children. So it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting ideas. Massachusetts has already extended the amount of time a teacher can come back and work for a district after they've taken their pension. It used to be if you got 80% of your top 3 years, you could only earn the 20% more to your maximum. They've extended beyond that. And there's even talk about allowing on purpose double dipping in the state for up to 3 years after a teacher retires to get some of those highly qualified teachers to come back and keep teaching, but pay them for their time.
Yeah.
So no early incentives coming, I don't think, guys, but there's other talk out there about how to keep the best of the best with our kids.
Yeah. I'm sorry, do you want to say something, ma'am?
I do, just on this real quick, along the whole thing with the parents.
I'm sorry, could you state your name?
My name's Jen Ehring, and I'm a para at the SLIT program. And I just want to say, and I'm sure the high school paras can speak to this as well, but talking about substitutes, paras are used as substitutes all the time.
Yep.
And still paid as paras. Not
Correct.
sub-pay, not the teacher's pay, nothing. And it happens daily, continuously.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
just wanted, I walked in tad late, so I'm sorry if she had already said that.
Yep.
I think it needs to be said again, even if it was said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Christine?
Anything
Anything
else?
else?
No, is there any questions?
All right. Right.
Thank you. I have a few curriculum instruction and assessment updates. So this spring, we have a pilot book study happening. Nicole Fanisov, our 7 through 12 ELA coordinator, is running a book study on UDL and blended learning by Katie Novak. She's a Massachusetts resident who does a lot of national professional development on universal design for learning, which the spirit of is to provide as much access and challenge to the curriculum as possible. So we're excited that members of the admin team, coordinators, members of the Professional Development Council have the opportunity to participate in that. Our hope is to increase opportunities for all staff to share in that next year, but I just wanted to acknowledge Nicole's efforts and our efforts as a leadership team to undergo this pilot and move forward with that. So as part of this process, Katie Novak has offered to do a live virtual session for people participating in that. So just wanted to update the committee on that and share some of that excitement and gratitude for everyone who's participating. Next, we have our student survey, round 2.
Ryan, before you move on, sorry, just what was the like timing of like, if somebody on the school committee wanted to read the book, and what is your timing on that conversation if we would like to understand better
If people would like to
what?
participate,
Yeah.
we still have, the deadline for invitations is tomorrow, so if anyone on the school committee would like to participate, you could shoot me an email this evening. I will add you to the book study's already underway, but if you wanted to participate in the live session with Katie Novak, you could email me tonight, and we'll pick up a copy of the text for you, and then you would need to be available June 9th, which is, I believe, is a Thursday afternoon, between 3 and 4:30, and you could participate in the session and hear what the group is discussing, so.
And I don't want to overstep my bounds here, Paula. am
Oh,
I- Okay,
no,
I just am interested, as we spoke earlier in the meeting that was at 5:30, and Jill talked about how critical curriculum and instruction will be as a focus for our district over the next, 5 years / eternity, but thank you.
Sure, and I would just add a little bit more to your question, that this really is, I think one of the things that we're focused on as a leadership team is ensuring that we maintain a focus, and that when we move forward with projects, that we're demonstrating to staff that it's worthy of the time investment, and that it's not sort of a one and done. So this is a smaller group to ensure that, to look at the match with our strategy for district improvement. I believe I can speak for the group, that there's tight alignment with our inclusive practices goal and our understanding by design goal. Part of the small pilot is to make sure that this is a good fit for us before it rolls out to a full staff. We just want to make sure that everything's tightly aligned and focused. So I would just preface it with that if there is an interest to participate, that's why we're starting small.
Thank you.
Secondly, we have our second round of our student SEL survey, which will occur for students in grades 3 through 12. As we talked about earlier this year, the student SEL survey will be administered on June 14th. All parents, it's administered digitally during the school day. All parents will receive an email and a copy of every question on May 31st that reminds them or notifies them of the survey. Parents would have an opportunity to opt out if they didn't wish their student to participate. Those would be due on June 10th. We will use that data from the survey to track improvement in areas of relationships, grit, growth mindset, and emotional regulation. These are the same questions that were offered in the November survey, so we can quantify the efforts that were underway this year. And the early elementary grades obviously don't use a survey, but I know our focus here is 7 through 12, so those are that's a reminder about the student survey. Finally.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Ryan.
I just wanted to briefly say that I thank you for your transparency on that and the communication with parents regarding that survey.
You're welcome. Thank you. Finally, just an update from the District Wellness Committee. Every district is required to have District Wellness Committee, which we do have and have met several times this year, 4 times. We had our in-person coaching session with Chrisanne Harrison from the Stalker Institute. She helped us to evaluate our current district wellness policy using the WellSat 3.0, which is an assessment tool that they offer. We took that feedback, we improved our wellness policy based on that feedback. Chrisanne is reviewing our improvements. We then would be excited to share our improved policy with the policy subcommittee so it could be reviewed. I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Megan Ehrenholtz, Dan Correa, nurse leader Carol Beck, and Martha Jameson for all of their help this year on the wellness subcommittee. And that concludes the updates for curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Dr. Prue.
So on April 26th, We held a joint session for the strategy of district improvement progress. That was recorded, and I believe if it's not on our website, it will be shortly. I believe it's already there, though. So if you weren't able to attend and you want to hear a summary of our progress towards our goals, that is available. In terms of the testing for COVID, on May 5th, the commissioner held a meeting for superintendents. Testing will continue till the end of the school year. You may recall that we were promised that this issue would be revisited in the spring, and he did notify us that the testing kits would continue to be given out until the end of the school year. I would also like to thank Carol Beck for scheduling a Narcan training on May 25th at the middle school library from 3 to 4 through Clinton County Outreach. And a separate school committee, we had a request to make sure that our staff had the opportunity to be trained in Narcan. And Carol has followed through and has set up a date for any staff to participate in on May 25th at the middle school library from 3 to 4 p.m. I have requested a policy subcommittee meeting with our chair. We hope to be able to meet on June 14th, provided that we have a quorum of all school committees. We know that there's some restructuring, reorganization that's going on, but we believe we should be able to meet on June 14th. There are a few policies that we'd like to review with the committee. Also, again, I don't recall if this is something that we have talked about before in school committee, so please forgive me, but I am happy to announce that Halifax Town Meeting, they did support our Silver Lake budget. They also supported their portion of the tennis court project. And the Halifax Town Meeting will meet again. It was canceled Tuesday night. It will actually be on Monday night. And we'll have more information on the status of the middle school SRO and whether or not that was supported as well.
Can we just add and this committee knows because we did communicate out, what Halifax did not support was the establishment of the stabilization fund. Yeah.
So just a point of order on that. Obviously, 2 towns still have to have their town meetings. Is it a moot point with 1 town voting no, or is this still a situation where even a symbolic yes would be meaningful moving forward?
I feel like I want to say with stabilization, all 3 towns have to do it.
I mean, for it to be, you could establish it in the other 2 towns, but it doesn't make sense. If there's not 3, we'd have to have it in the budget, and, you know, it's a moot point, yes. Symbolically, if they approved, I don't know. Halifax's concern was similar to what happened to the budget last year, where Halifax did not vote in favor of it at town meeting, and the other 2 towns did, and it forced, if you will, Halifax to absorb the budget, to support the budget. Their concern is it would be the same scenario with the stabilization fund, and it would be additional, you know.
So I'm tasked with bringing that article to before a town meeting for Clinton, and I tend to bring it forward so I can hear the will of my town to see if they support it currently or to see what work we need to do next year to get their support next year. So that's my intent as a representative.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So are there dates attached? Like, is there an expiration date on the vote? Like, it had to be this fiscal year that the stabilization fund is therefore implemented? Not we could vote it in Kingston and now we voted it, and if in 3 years Halifax votes yes, we've already voted yes. We're voting it for the immediate fiscal year?
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's probably, it's an interesting question. I don't think we could add a general ledger line to the Silver Lake budget without all 3 towns agreeing to it. That's my knee-jerk reaction. Russ could probably weigh in, but I'm thinking we would not be able to put that on our operating budget without all three towns agreeing that that should be there.
Yeah,
I think what
But
she's,
it would still exist, like
Yeah.
if in 3 years we wanted to put it, like if in 3 years they proposed it, we'd already have voted on it and it would already be
She's asking,
established.
yeah.
So
I do know
it means nothing, it's
Yeah.
just a vote.
Yeah,
Could we get clarification on that? Because we've already
I think
prepped
Madam Chair
our,
already mentioned looping our attorney,
Yeah.
Russ.
Yeah.
He will probably reach out to Deputy Commissioner Sullivan, and we have some sort of answer for
Yeah.
us.
because I also am
because we may as
tasked
well
with
vote
presenting
in
it to
Kingston.
Kingston on
If the
Saturday.
vote
Right.
is one time and
And my
done.
inclination would be to
Kingston
do it
Saturday.
to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, if Kingston votes yes, then if Halifax votes yes in 2 years, Kingston doesn't have to do it again.
agreed,
We've already
agreed.
I
done
feel like
it.
we've already prepped our towns and we've talked, you know, there's just been so much work done that
Yep.
it would be a loss to the other two towns
Yep.
to just table it now.
Yeah. So let me see if I can get Russ to weigh in tomorrow, because your town meeting's Saturday.
Correct.
And it's a good question. It's probably a little tricky, but it's a good question. I'll reach out to him tonight after this meeting.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next item is the school committee meeting schedule in your packet. And if you would take a look at the proposed Silver Lake School Committee meetings. Items in yellow were highlighted for school committees because we weren't able to have them on the traditional day of the week in order to try to keep them in line with the number of weeks in between meetings. I'd also like to continue the joint school committee list of November with combined budgetary presentations like we did this year. I received positive feedback on that, and I think that was very helpful to our staff as well to present one presentation for special education, technology, and at the elementary level, the curriculum requests. February 9th, that's typically when we vote our shared cost budget. My hope is to have a 5 p.m. start. That is different than the other meetings because that's the same night as Silver Lake. I hope I'm going with the 5 p.m. start. We had so many shared cost contracts this year that were up. The hope is that there'll be fewer for us to have to review at this meeting. And then April 13th, again, to once again update you on the progress towards our strategy for district improvement. So I have presented this so far to the Halifax School Committee. I'm now presenting it to Silver Lake. I'm looking for your review and a potential vote.
Go ahead.
Since this is my last meeting, I'm going to make a motion that we meet twice a month next year. All right?
I'll second that.
All right. It's not a real motion. Don't write it down.
Any questions on the schedule?
Motion to accept the schedule is presented.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All righty, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay, so the next item is the school calendar, which is a little more, there's some complicated issues on this calendar for next year. So I just want to try to make sure I point them all out to you. New teacher orientation, August 24th. In-service for teachers, August 29th through 30th. August 31st, the first day of school. You'll notice September 5th is Labor Day. And what we've been asked to do by the town of Halifax is to schedule one of our in-service days for teachers on September 6th because of the election. As you know, some of our schools serve as voting sites, and so this would be very helpful. This would be in place of our February PD that we did this year, for example, so we would have that on September 6th. If you also notice, we received a request that has been supported by two unions. It was actually brought to my attention by the Kingston Teachers Association, but it was discussed in open meeting at Halifax, where the Halifax Teachers Association also supported moving the half-days that were on Wednesdays last year because of our hybrid model to Thursdays. Because it is a late evening, and to have it on a Wednesday night and for teachers to feel tired 2 days before the weekend is they felt that it would be beneficial and helpful to have it on a Thursday night instead. So that's why you'll notice the change from Wednesday on half-days to Thursdays. And then the next item is that Megan Aaronholtz has been here in the past to talk about changes to expectations for school lunches. One of the expectations is that we're serving in a congregate setting or allow students to eat lunch in a congregate setting on all school days, and half-days are considered school days. At the secondary level, that's a little bit easier because our students are more independent in terms of getting their lunch, eating their lunch, that kind of thing. So we're not requesting, and all of our in-service days are at the same time. So they've done lunches and non-lunch days at the secondary level in the past. However, we're looking for the early release days for elementary, and I'm pointing this out to you, to be at 12:45, because that is a change on this calendar for next year, where it used to say no lunch served on those half days. We used to have a combination of some days noon and some years 12:45. Our elementary principals have asked us to extend to 12:45. We'll lose a little bit of professional development time on those days, but the benefit will be the opportunity for students who are food insecure, and for students to eat lunch, and for all students to have that social opportunity. I think that was a lesson that we all learned from the pandemic, the benefits of socialization for all of our children. The one exception to the rule being the Thanksgiving noon release. Part of the issue there, one, not knowing what impact that could have on family plans for the holiday, but also if we were to extend that, we would be extending the number of work hours for our staff. With that said, I did receive a request today from the SLEA to impact bargain, because our cafeteria workers would now be serving lunches on half days.
Yeah, Jill, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
clarify. So I don't think it's an issue for the calendar for us, because it's not going to affect any of the times, but there's an item in the support staff contract that references cafeteria workers on half days. So I think it's just a matter of sitting down to make sure we're all on the same page on that. But it doesn't impact the calendar for the secondary level.
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out all of those nuances, changes to the calendar that don't really jump out at you, because it looks like a pretty traditional calendar, but there are some changes here that you should be aware of.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, we heard that two of our collective bargaining units of professionals has said that they're good or want the Thursdays. Are you also?
So if I'm understanding correctly, they want the Thursdays because they have parent-teacher conferences on those days, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, I haven't, this is the first I've heard of it, actually. I didn't even notice it on the calendar, so I haven't talked to anybody about it. I don't know what their position would be, but I think the reason that the elementary
why have a Friday for separate?
favor
Because
that is
Easter.
because they're doing
We don't do
conferences
religious.
on those days, so that's not something that we would be.
Well, we always do,
Not
this,
saying
everyone in the state does Good
that-
Friday,
that
but Easter must be on the,
Yeah, nice.
necessarily have an issue
So I
with
was like,
Thursdays, but I really can't comment.
We don't do-
either way.
so we had talked about not doing this,
Yeah.
but then we wouldn't have enough students showing up. You have to have a certain percentage of your students who show up to
That, I
school.
think I agree when the vacation's there. But when the vacation's not there, what are the kids gonna do? They'll go to church? Are you serious? I'm sorry, really?
I think that's just the worry, that if they don't do that holiday, if you just take it away as a holiday,
You ruin, you risk
like you
shooting
can
other kids.
not have enough kids to count
Oh,
it.
I think I'll ask.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept the calendar as presented.
Second. Go ahead, Leslie Ann.
I know what she's gonna say.
That's fine, you know, because I say it every year. I know, I'm like the thorn in people's side today, right? The last time it was
It's okay,
3 years ago, right?
Continuity is good.
So I would request that April 7th be either A, and I'm asking for a friendly amendment to my makers here, my motion makers, I should say, not my maker, 'cause I don't know what it is. That right? Exactly, it's totally ironic, isn't it?
Pun intended.
Pun intended, that April 7th either be relabeled on the calendar as a vacation day, period, or that it be moved to April 14th to coincide with the beginning of April vacation week. Because many of you have heard me say over and over again, it's a religious holiday. We do not have other religious holidays on our calendar, nor is it a recognized state or federal holiday. And I do not believe that it should be on our calendar in a public school. So if we're going to take that day off, I'd like it to either be labeled as just a general vacation day, if we want to keep it, or move to the 14th of April.
Yeah, Christmas is a holiday.
It doesn't say Christmas. It is just a holiday week.
Yes. It's not religious specific.
It's not
Remember I tried
Do we-
that
do we
years
need
ago in
that-
Halifax to change it back to Christmas, and I got crucified. Nobody
No pun
remembers that.
intended.
Oh, jeez.
You guys are all over the place.
Yeah.
Do we need that day? Like, we just shorten the calendar almost, like,
We have had this discussion before,
Yeah.
as
We have
Leslie
had
had
this
mentioned.
discussion before.
And Chris, you were a member of the committee at that point,
Yeah.
as well as Paul and Eric and myself. And I believe that we had discussed forming a calendar review committee with all four of the school committees involved in this, and we never put that together.
yeah.
So I would say that the failure to make this change is on us. And if we want to change the calendar in the future based on noted concerns, that we should establish and make sure that committee is meeting and comes with recommendations to the superintendent in a timely manner.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, we've had this conversation years ago in Kingston, and I'll just tell you this, the argument then is, if you're in a community that's predominantly Jewish, you'll have a lot of Jewish holidays that are days off, and the reason being, not that we're promoting one religion over another, but it's a reality in that we need a certain percentage of kids to attend school. And if we all of a sudden stop making that a day off from school, would we reach that minimum percentage of attendance to even count it as a day of school? Because it might not count anyways if we don't get that certain percentage. And I know the discussion then was that we probably wouldn't get enough kids. And I don't remember that there was ever a survey that went out to parents to ask, would you keep your kids out of school if we had school that day or not? But that's the risk that we ran, and we kicked the can down the road, and that was 12 to 15 years ago in Kingston. And it's been brought up on this committee as well in the past few years. So, that's the risk you run. I mean, I think if a committee does this, they would need to poll the parents and say, how many people would keep your kids out?
I don't disagree. I just
Yeah.
think that if we're going to keep it on, I think that at least the step we should make is to relabel it from a religious holiday to a general vacation day.
May I ask a procedural question?
That's a
All
friendly
four school
amendment.
committees need to agree on any changes made to the calendar, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the past, we've had it connected to just the spring vacation. So with it disconnected from spring vacation, I don't know if Eric Points has as much weight of people just going away for a regular weekend like they would escaping early for spring vacation. But again, I don't know when this needs approved, but it is a four-committee issue.
So I like your subcommittee idea, I think it's
And
appropriate.
that wasn't even my idea, that was just the idea of the larger body.
Yeah.
When this came up last time, and we never followed through.
Did you make the motion?
I made the motion to
Okay.
accept.
Okay.
And I seconded it.
Do we accept my friendly amendment?
But we can't, right?
Well,
No.
we can,
We can.
absolutely.
Just so everybody knows, Halifax has already voted to approve this
Yeah.
calendar as written.
Well, we just have to, circulate an amendment.
Yep.
And if we don't have an agreement, we don't have a calendar, right?
No, they'd have to
No,
meet.
Well, one side would have to move, right? One
So
side would have
you'd
to budge.
we would have, they would have to meet again,
They would have to meet again, or we'd have to meet again and budge.
not we.
Well,
I'm saying they.
It doesn't change, it doesn't
I was
thinking-
change
I was thinking
the
they,
calendar.
Halifax.
It
Yeah.
doesn't, it changes the labeling of the day. It's all it does. It's all my friendly amendment does, at this point.
So I need to turn to my administrator and say, if Leslie Ann's friendly amendment, and there's technically no such thing as a friendly
I know.
amendment.
I'll make an amendment if you want.
No, parliamentary,
Right.
there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. I would have to withdraw like I did when Summer made the amendment and
Or I could just make an amendment.
you can make an amendment.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no such thing as a
Friendly, yeah.
So why don't we just do that?
Make an unfriendly
And then we
amendment?
can-
I don't want to be
Then we can
unfriendly.
vote on the amendment.
Yep.
If it passes, then we can vote on the initial
Yep.
Right.
motion.
All right, so
Okay.
I make an amendment to change the label of the day off on April 7th in the calendar year 2022-2023 to a vacation day? I don't know what you want to call it.
Does that need a second? I would second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jill, so would that technically screw up your 4 votes if we took the day off, but we called it something different?
What do you mean forward?
The vote
Is there
of
a
Dennis, the
contract
vote of
issue where,
Halifax,
like,
the vote of
just
Kingston.
get paid
Kingston, the vote of
holidays and
us.
this is
So
just
we all
a
have to vote
holiday?
to change the calendar.
My understanding is that you all vote the calendar, so the calendar would be the same.
Right.
I would have to talk to Russ if there's any loophole to that, but my understanding is that we vote one calendar, and we have to reach consensus on that. So regardless of
But this is technically
anything, any
making a change
content,
to the calendar.
right.
It's a labeling, it's not a day
Is this making a
change.
change to the calendar?
It's making a change to the content
Right.
of the vote.
Because it would be Good Friday and then parentheses, vacation for Silver Lake. But Good
how is it
Friday for
changing
the elementaries.
calendar?
It's
Because
not
the
changing
days
the
itself,
calendar.
like, so these
Yeah.
people in red up here, are we re-voting when those people are new people because the piece of paper changed?
No.
Right.
So if the piece of paper changing isn't what it is, it's the actual days on the calendar, and we aren't changing those.
But
It's a
changing
Russell
the label.
question.
Well,
Yeah.
Change the
what's
label.
going to happen
But you
if
can't
one of the
have-
committees
you have to have
votes
one
to
calendar.
change?
Oh, I agree with
The
you.
school days are the same.
That's going to happen.
Why do
But-
we
but-
need to label, can't we just write no school on any of the, do we need to label why we have no school?
No.
Like, couldn't every time we don't have school, it just say, no school? April 17th to the 21st, no school.
We can't override Halifax. They've already voted this as it exists. And the names of us who aren't in there are in red, so I think that's.
Aren't part of the calendar, though.
And-
Right.
And who is it of one of the 4 committees to dictate what's printed on the
That's
calendar?
what I'm saying.
I think
We
that's
don't
gonna
have that
create-
power.
It's going to create a storm.
It's not going to pass in Halifax and Kingston.
It's
Go
not
ahead,
going to.
Jason.
No way.
Do you want to just put this
I
to a
just want to
vote?
reiterate that this is our fault, that we didn't convene that subcommittee
Yeah.
and to hold up the
Yeah,
process.
so that's on me. I'll
No,
take
it's
that
not-
one.
It is not
No.
your fault.
But we're not, I'll just say,
Madam
I'll
Chair,
take that,
You were not the
so.
chair at this time, and you were not the person who made the motion for the subcommittee to be formed. So respectfully, no, it's not your fault.
Okay.
It's collectively
Yeah.
the fault of all of the school committees for not putting dates on a calendar and meeting up and having these discussions several years ago when it was first brought up.
Yeah.
And now here we are at the 11th hour with this situation, and I totally understand where you're coming from, but again, we're talking about communication and transparency. We're gonna make this change without reaching out to our constituents and our families. I can't support that at this point, even though I might support the change
Yeah.
if we do it in due process.
I don't know how a label would technically be a calendar change, but that just me
You can
thinking
only
like
have
Russell.
you can't have 2 calendars, one with one label
But
and
the
one
schools
with
are
a different
still
label.
going to school on the same days, the same hours. That's the calendar. What we're labeling it is winter break, holiday break, spring break. I think that's immaterial to the fact that the school is not being held. But I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but maybe Russ will say, yeah, we have a problem.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what bearing it may or may not have on this debate, but, or the legality of it. I'm not certain. But I know that many of our contracts acknowledge and grant Good Friday as a holiday for our staff.
Yeah, I was afraid that was going to be a contract thing. yeah.
So I think that's another thing that
but they would still get Good Friday off
Yeah, they
because
still
they're still getting April 7th off. So like as a non-Christian person, it always irritates me when we have Good Friday off because I'm not Christian. And so it means nothing to me. It's just a day my kids are home when I'm still working because my corporate job still has a job. Like I still go to work that day. So I'm not getting, like nothing's gonna change. That's still all gonna happen. They're just not gonna label it Good Friday, which is a religious holiday. But note, like, even if a contract said April 7th, they would still be getting Good Friday off.
You don't think that there might be families in our community that would be offended by that?
I'm offended. Does my opinion not count?
I didn't say that. That's not
So
what
there
I
are
asked.
families in the community that are offended when it says Good Friday.
Right, and there's also the
But-
reverse of that. I'm just saying that that's true. That's a true statement. Just like it bothers me that it doesn't say Christmas vacation right here. And I brought it to my committee, and we had a discussion about it, and we had the same discussion we're having right now. This was years ago. And it really upset a lot of people in our community, both sides. And it caused a very big discussion that I didn't intend to have. It was just when the whole war on Christmas thing was happening, and I was like, well, perfect example right now on our calendar. And so it really created a rift in our entire community, just because I brought up the fact that I wanted it to say Christmas vacation. So I am going to say that cautionarily, this is going to happen again if we do this. I'm just telling you that this is going to create a rift in our communities.
Well, and
Just
and
saying.
I can just add to that, Madam Chair.
However it ends up.
I totally respect that. I really do. I mean, it doesn't matter what my religious background, it doesn't matter at all. But I very quietly every year vote no on this calendar.
For that reason.
Every year. For this only reason. And I respect, Jill, how much work it takes to put this calendar together. And I finally decided this year I'm not going to be as quiet about it as I usually am because we haven't made any progress on this topic. So every year this vote comes up, I vote no. People look at me like, I wonder why she voted no on the calendar. Well, I told you 3 years ago why I voted no on the calendar, and every year I just vote no. So this year I decided, well, I know I'm not going to make as much progress as I would like, is to remove this holiday, religious holiday, from the calendar. But all I'm asking is it to be relabeled as a day that is just a no school day.
Yeah.
As a starting point.
Well, I'm
We get a
glad you
vote
brought
this
it up
week.
because I do think that it's important that if we're going to make these changes that we talk about it and do something.
Agreed.
I just want to point out, I've been on elementary school committee. I was on there for 15 to 16 years, and this one for 6 years. In all those years, I've never had a single email from anybody about labeling the calendar. The discussions are right here, not every year, but almost every year, and this is the only time it's ever discussed. It's not discussed on social media, in restaurants, it's not discussed.
I think it's a consistency thing. You know, we don't have other religious holidays labeled, or even days off. So it's a consistency of recognition of all the holidays that should be on here, but obviously we put them all on here. The calendar will go from August 5th to July 7th. Not reasonable.
I think it also feels like it's an inclusivity thing, that we talk in our district goals about being inclusive. So to me, relabeling it does not exclude any group. We're not labeling it with any single group's religious holiday. So while I respect that people find Good Friday to be a deeply important holiday for them and their community, I would hope that they would respect that still having the day off, but the labeling of it would provide a greater inclusivity to more members of our community that may not share that same religious affiliation. And I think the reason, I mean, I don't know that a lot of people look at it, but I think it is symbolic. Like, we are what we put on our paper as a district, and if we want to say that we're building an inclusive community, then we should make sure the language that we're using is inclusive. So I will also vote no this year. I have not been a part of the calendar votes in the past, but.
Will you vote yes for my amendment? Can we call the amendment?
Can we, what is the amendment at this point? What?
Yes.
I seconded it.
What is it?
The amendment is just to change the label, correct, Karen?
Yes.
On the April 7th, no school day to reflect either, I think I said vacation day or no school.
Okay. All righty. All those in favor of that motion? All those opposed? Abstained? Okay, got to do the math now. It didn't pass.
661.
Yeah.
doesn't have a majority of the
Yeah.
board.
Okay.
So now you go into the original motion to accept the calendar.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstained? So we still down 2-4.
7-6.
Okay. You do math faster than me.
Yeah.
So
It's two and Jason's one.
So we still
Right,
have
sorry.
a religious holiday on our calendar.
Yeah, 7.
Oh, that's a
6.
half.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So form a subcommittee and get it figured out for next year.
Make a motion.
Uh-uh,
I'm going to make a
I'll second you.
motion.
I'm out.
Exactly.
I'm going to make a motion, Madam Chair, to establish a calendar subcommittee
There you
for
go.
the 2023-2024 school year, of which its charge is to evaluate the inclusivity of our calendar system.
I don't know if we can do that. That's a joint, that would be a joint.
Well, we have to
School committee.
establish,
Well, this could do one. It doesn't mean it has a fruitful outcome.
yep,
It would just be for
just like we did
this,
for the school start times.
just for this committee.
Yeah.
I understood, but it's a little bit different. That's outside of, you need all representation from all 4 school committees to do that.
You can charge the chair with reaching out to the other chairs to establish.
A working group.
A subcommittee.
Well, then it's a subcommittee.
You could
'cause it's-
officially do subcommittee.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need that in a motion?
I'll reach out, I'll follow up in July.
Thank you.
Do you want to be on it?
Just one more note on the calendar. I do appreciate the color coding and the addition of the meetings on
Yeah.
here. I think that was something that we had talked about last year. It would be helpful, and I think it's nice for the community to know when school committee meetings are happening, and I love that they're on one of the versions. There's a colored version and a not colored version, but on that version. So thank you.
Okey-dokey. Thank you all.
Thank you, that's it.
You're all set? Okay. All right, new business. Okay, seeing none. Old business? None?
Madam Chair, if I may, I don't, which you might say, no, you can't at this point, but,
We're
You're on a roll.
yes, is it new, old,
You're on
is
a
it,
I think we were going to make it its own spot, but I would like to see an update on that tonight.
can you entertain it since new business isn't always necessarily posted under the agenda?
Sure.
That you would accept a piece of new business and it would be the school start time working group?
Absolutely.
Are you sure is that appropriate?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So under new business, do you want to do this or do you want me to do this?
You're already going, so.
So, the school start time working group met on May 2nd for its inaugural meeting. And Assistant Superintendent Lynch, myself, and Emily spearheaded the development of this working group and the first meeting. We spent about a month in paneling the working group. So the working group has members from all 3 communities and all 6 schools. Did I say that right? And all 4 school committees. Like, this is a really complicated district. So just
Like, yes.
yes, I know. So just for transparency, as I think I mentioned before, Ryan, Emily, and I met to figure out sort of what an initial approach this might be for this working group. We have solicited members from each school committee to serve on the working group. Each school council, parent would be the parent representation or the guardian or the representation on the school committee. Each union, correct, John? Each union, all the unions have representation on the school start time working group. We have students assigned from both the middle school and the high school that were selected by their principals to serve. In both cases, they'll be in that school for the next year, so it's a rising 8th grader and then a rising 10th, 11th, and 12th grader, so they'll be through the next year. I feel like we're missing somebody. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
We had our first meeting, we had about 17 or so folks at it, which was great. We're still struggling with a little bit of representation on a few committees, which we're reaching out to that. There's been some leadership changes on school committees, so that's kind of one of the reasons. Emily gave a presentation which talked about the sort of three aspects that we're going to look at, which are education, logistics, and engagement with the community. Those are sort of three themes of the working group. And she gave a great presentation on all the data and the science that support school start times. A lot of it is from the secondary level. So we are looking for some more information on the elementary level. We had a great discussion. We had whiteboards up around the room on different topics, like logistics and family impacts and transportation and all these things. And people put up all different things, and we talked about them all, and it was really constructive. And we'll be putting a meeting summary out, and we agreed that our next meeting sometime in June will include more education for us, like having a member of the bus company come in and other things like that. So I guess that is all to say the working group is off and running. We're still hoping for a little bit more representation. Summer?
I tried, I've sent them multiple emails.
That's okay. It's a busy time.
I'll poke them again. When is your next meeting? You said that part?
We haven't. It's going to be in June before school ends. I think we don't have a date set yet.
Okay.
So we will be developing a Google Drive for all the material to be on, and then eventually that material will be shared on the websites with the community as we sort of get off and running. Any questions?
It's a great update. Go right ahead.
I have a question.
We'll get more interest.
Yeah.
Did you guys include the athletic director, Martha, at all in this? Because it's a huge, she was involved years ago when we talked about this, and there was a lot there.
I think Ryan is currently representing the administrative staff at this point, and what we talked about is that there's different stakeholder groups that, we will solicit input and engagement with
Yep.
at key moments, but not that those folks maybe need to come. So Martha would be one, CTE is another,
Yep.
The bus company and some of the
Right.
logistics. Christine, you may even pop your head in terms of some of those pieces, people who
Yeah.
we know maybe need to come to one or two meetings, but don't need to come to every meeting as a part of the working group. So she's on our list, yes.
And I think it's just important to add, Duxbury did this, and so that involved sports. They're always running late, like they're literally jumping off the bus, throwing on their helmet, going right on the field, or like in hockey, literally, like they're dressed on the bus, they get off with guards on their skates. So it really affects, it affects all of that, and it would wipe out, and just so you know, I think I talked about this before, but like Silver Lake has ice hockey practice time at 2:30. I know that's not more important than a kid's health, but it would just like wipe out those hours. Those would be gone. So there's a lot of ripple effects, and you guys know that, but since I'm not going to be here anymore, I just figured I'd
You can be on the work-
reiterate that. Yeah, no.
Community representative.
No.
Just to speak to Erin's point,
Yeah.
to make sure that we have all the cards on the table.
Right.
That specific concern about some high schools doing it and some high schools not doing it is specifically why there has been state legislation filed the past 6 years to form a working group at their end to potentially state mandate the school start times being changed like California did. Currently, Massachusetts is just using California as a case study instead of putting too much time, money, and effort into it themselves. So that could also be something that ends up impacting the work that you guys are doing.
Right.
Or they might end up asking you to come and give testimony of your research and your findings as well.
I think that's something that's motivating the working group, and one of the reasons I think all 4 school committees in 3 towns and 6 buildings are interested in this, because it may come to a theater near us without our ability to either A, plan for it, or understand
Yeah.
how we might adjust to it. So we don't have a intended outcome other than to present material back to the community on what we learned and how you could do it if you were to do it. Emily brought some data on all the different communities and when their start times were and how complicated it was. We've talked about talking to other districts about some of their adjustments, probably districts that are a little bit longer than 2 years into it. But it is all fodder for discussion, and I think we've got a robust membership of folks that represent a lot of different stakeholder groups in our system that will bring really great information, and already have in that first meeting. So
Yeah, I was really impressed with the engagement of the folks that are a part of it, and I think our our goal, like Leslie Ann said, I mean, I just want to reiterate, like, we're not looking to make the change. We're just looking to say, if the change were to be made, this is how it could happen. So that if the state said to us at some point, hey, you have to make the change, we've already done some of the background work. So we may get to the end of the road and say, if the change were to happen, here's how it would happen. And we may decide as communities, nope, let's not change. You know, so the goal is not, like Leslie Ann said, that we have this end to do the change, but rather to say what is feasible and how would this work in our community and what would the impact be. Ooh, jinx. Because we do recognize after the pandemic, reacting to state mandates is much, much harder than anticipating them and attempting to plan for them, so.
So thanks for the time. That's what
Oh,
we're
that
up
was
to.
a wonderful update, thank you. Reports of special committees. John?
Good evening, everybody. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Anya for speaking on behalf of the paras. Just one thing I'll mention to kind of add to that came to me actually just a couple of hours ago. I know we've had some difficulty even getting all the para positions filled, and I was told today that there were actually 2 open positions at the high school that they interviewed for, and they actually made offers to a number of people, and they turned it down because of the salary. They could get more other places. So, you know, I do think it has impact on the district's ability to attract and retain high-quality paraprofessionals. I'd also just mention too, you know, that I do believe that you value the work that they do, but I would point out that the settlement they get is part of it, but also concluding it in a reasonable time frame also helps to show how they're valued, and I hope that we can conclude it before the end of the school year so we don't keep talking about it over the summer. One other thing I wanted to mention, last week we had the presentation at the middle school from the Anti-Defamation League, and we were talking a little bit about that in the union, and you know, I know it's been controversial in the community, and we don't necessarily have an opinion about the Anti-Defamation League's presentation in general, but one thing that I would like to mention is I think what sometimes is getting lost in some of the conversations about this kind of thing is that I think we all want all of our students to have a safe place to be educated. I think that we all value everybody in the community, students and staff, treating everybody with respect and dignity. And I just want to say that I appreciate the district's efforts to advance that, and I hope that despite some controversies, the district's still going to commit themselves to those values. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Administrative review, we did have a number of meetings culminating in this evening's discussion with Jill. Thank you all, and thank you, Jill. CTE.
No meetings, but as I think we mentioned earlier, Elliot's hopefully going to come to our next meeting and update and give you everything you need in terms of that program.
And the other thing I'll remind everybody is Lucas has missed a couple of meetings recently from this committee because he's actually taking one of the classes through the adult CTE program, which is wonderful. So when he comes back, he will be put on the hot seat and will share with us what his thoughts are. And he's part of the CTE subcommittee as well, so it's a sort of a nice opportunity for him.
As my partner from Plimpton, Lucas was very courteous, reaching out prior to accepting that class to make sure I could make all of the meetings so we could hold business here. He was extremely excited to have the opportunity to learn a new skill, and he's been participating in the welding program. So I'm sure he will definitely have some interesting stories to share with us when he gets back to the table.
Hopefully no bandages.
Chairman's report, correspondence. The Coastal SNAP flyer is included this evening. And you had chatted about that.
Yeah, you may have remembered back in the fall I had asked for some time to have someone from Coastal Snap come in and speak with us about their program. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the population of children who take Coastal Snap opportunities, they had to shut down. Jim mentioned earlier in the principal's report about our unified track team here at Silver Lake. It's an opportunity for students with special needs, along with peer mentors, to compete and feel pride in what they do. Coastal Snap has the same mission. It's for young children to have adaptive sports and adaptive day camps and opportunities with peer mentors. In the past, Michaela has been nice enough to allow a flyer to go out soliciting students to be those mentors, and would help them qualify for their community service hours. So this again is Coastal Snap coming back before you. In full disclosure, my wife is one of the executive committee members of Coastal Snap. So I do have skin in the game, but I think we all do, especially with these kids.
So would somebody like to?
So I'll move to approve the flyer for distribution.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to add, my youngest son, a couple of years ago, before COVID, was able to get involved and served as a mentor. He had a ton of fun. He's studying nursing in college, but he seriously considered going into teaching because he had so much fun. He was thinking of, going into special education. But he decided to move forward with nursing. But it's a great program, like I said. So thanks to your wife.
Thanks to the volunteers, because without those peer mentors, the programs wouldn't be able to run.
Right.
All right. So for the motion, all those in favor? Aye. Are you voting?
I'm just going to abstain.
You're going to abstain?
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Okay, legislative agent.
Oh, jeez.
Look at your notes.
Yeah, the budget is in the fifth inning of the seventh inning game, but last time I spoke to you, all we had was the governor's proposal at the beginning of the year, which was a little lackluster for Silver Lake to a certain extent. Then the House Ways and Means Committee came up with their budget, and I was a little bit dismayed because regional transportation was funded by $4 million less than last fiscal year, which would have impacted us pretty substantially. So I did what anybody would do in a crisis with regional schools. I called John Creed. Don't know who John Creed is? Be thankful I know who John Creed is, because we came up with a game plan. Contacted Kathy Lenatra, who is our state rep in Plimpton and Kingston and half of Halifax, and she happens to be on the House Ways and Means Committee. She immediately went to the chair of the committee and filed an amendment to fully fund regional transportation, even plus a few dollars. But you may recall my first meeting back with you in September, I warned that there is a contingent of reps in the House right now who want to rewrite the formula for transportation funding, and they want to include non-regional districts who drive extraordinary miles. Now, I don't begrudge the town of Plymouth the fact that they traverse hundreds of miles per day in their buses, but I don't think it should come on our behalf. I think that the regional schools were promised regional transportation would be fully reimbursed for them when we first started to regionalize schools in Massachusetts, and they should fulfill that obligation to us. Unfortunately, the House didn't end up passing Kathy's amendment or the several other amendments that other regional school reps tried to pass.
Bless you.
Yeah, bless you, sorry. Good news is the House is done, the Senate has it, and every single senator in Massachusetts has at least one regional school in their district. So they all have skin in the game. They funded on par with last year. So we now have a better understanding of where our numbers are. Compared to the governor's original estimates, we are seeing about $75,000 more from the state in funding. One of those areas is we're getting $60 per pupil minimum increment. It was originally slated to be $30. We also got $115 million from the state of Massachusetts for free meals for all students for next year. This is something I know that we've been talking about here. I still believe that this is a federal responsibility, but the feds are so messed up right now, they're letting the ball drop. There has been an amendment put in called Kids Not Red Tape, trying to extend the federal program for one more year, to try and give the feds time to do the right thing and pay for it themselves. But Massachusetts right now is in a very good position fiscally. Last April, we made $2 billion over benchmark just for the month of April. The budget that the Senate Ways and Means Committee just put forth would up our rainy day fund to 13.6% of the annual budget of the state of Massachusetts. It has built into it a safeguard. Once we get to 15% of the annual budget, we all get tax relief. That's built into the rainy day fund, and they're approaching that number right now. I think we all know that there is a potential for a recession, so we could see those state revenues go down. Luckily, because of good planning, there are funds for those contingencies. So, keeping our fingers crossed that the conference committee continues to add a little bit more to the plate. The Student Opportunity Act, year 2 of 6, is fully implemented, and because of a lot of lobbying, we actually accelerated the payment of special ed transportation to year 3 of the Student Opportunity Act to try and give some relief to some of our friendly districts that are struggling to pay for their special ed kids to get to the schools where they will learn and be best met with their educational needs. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Lots of phone calls, lots of emails. I'm sorry to everybody I've been reaching out to. But I'm just trying to get everything that our kids deserve and trying to make sure that I can relieve the burden on our towns to the best of my ability. And, I do appreciate the help of Senator Moran, Senator Brady, but especially Kathy and her Chief of Staff, Chris, who's my go-to guy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. That was great. You have one other topic?
Yeah. Did we distribute? It's okay.
I can send it out after the meeting, just to everybody.
If you wouldn't mind, because I'm going to butcher this right now. I'm exhausted. So we came forth with a 3.74% budget. Is that where we were? But yet that struck, Kingston was what, 2.4 assessment, 2.5? We were a negative 7.1, and Port Halifax was above a 5%. Did we get it down? Yeah.
The assessment, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the issue that we always face is, just like every other school committee in Massachusetts, we need to come up with a fiscally responsible budget that meets the educational needs of our students. But because of the assessment formulation of Massachusetts, we have peaks and valleys amongst our 3 towns based on enrollment and equalized valuation of property. So you guys authorized me to put forth a resolution to MASC for their conference in November. I had flushed out the language for that, and I even created MGL language. So if I got a rep and a senator to support it, they could file that exact language, and it models the municipal modernization language from 2016 under Chapter 40 for revolving accounts. So the language is identical to, like, let's say, the special ed stabilization funds that some towns have. But this speaks to our towns in years where there is excess funds potentially, with a negative 7.8%. Maybe Plimpton could have put $100,000 aside for a year where their assessment is 5 or 6%. Not because we came in with a ridiculous budget, just because of the way the assessments are. So I just wanted you to see the language that I'm sending to MASC. The MASC Regional Schools Committee actually got their hands on this proposal, and they voted unanimously to support our proposal to the delegate assembly. So it just puts a little bit more weight behind it. So I wanted to let you know that group had met, they had gone over the proposal, and they also supported it, but our name's on the top, they're just a proponent.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
That's okay.
That's the school assessment reserve?
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
create,
It was in
the
our,
town would control it, not
it was in our,
us.
it was in our email,
Okay,
yeah.
got it, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's in the
again,
attachment, just not-
that
Yeah.
concern sometimes that the towns have about where are these funds going, it would be controlled by the town, it would be established by, in our circumstance, a 2/3 vote at town meeting, and it could then be distributed at subsequent town meetings by, again, town meeting.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Did we talk about this in our last meeting?
If you guys voted to let me do it, but I actually flushed it all the way
Yeah.
out for you guys.
The attachment was in there in the email.
I feel like, yeah, I'm just thinking, I feel like I asked this question in the last meeting, maybe I don't remember the answer, that's why I was trying to. So, like in a case where we would give money back to the town, it would go into this fund instead? No.
So the town would have to put into their own warrant, you know, we are going to put $50,000 into
Yeah.
the Silver Lake Assessment Stabilization Fund, only for your own town. So in future years, if you get hit with a high assessment, you could draw from that fund to offset the increase,
Yeah.
all the way down to 2.5%.
The
So
town
we
by
don't
town.
want to have a relief valve that this can be used in years where things are okay. We want this to be a relief valve for extraordinary years like what you were facing.
Right.
Because we're all going to hit this. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a year where Plimpton's assessment was over an 8%.
I remember that.
And we voted it, but we had to make some decisions on other departments.
Yeah, it's short-term
Well,
turmoil.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, it might even have been in the time when Joy was the superintendent, that we tried to create a special education stabilization fund. That rings a bell?
That would be the elementary level, yeah.
Didn't pass Halifax either, if I remember correctly.
Plimpton has a special education stabilization fund, and it's fully funded at 2% of net school spending, and we add to that fund every single year. Our unwritten rule is,
I think it's a great
our
idea.
unwritten rule is that is for a mid-year move-in of a highly needy student that we didn't anticipate in the budget, so it doesn't blow up our budget.
Yeah.
Right? 2% of net school spending though is only for Plimpton, like $53,000.
This one as well, they're just fully funded also.
That's great. So we're actually trying to move that number to 5% of net school spending for the towns that can find a way to put the money in. It doesn't help the towns who are currently in a financial strapped position.
Yep.
Right, but I think like in hindsight, what we dealt with this year, it's an elementary conversation, but part of the problem is when you have a deficit even at the elementary level, it hurts how we're able to fund the Silver Lake budget, so just thinking.
So just to clarify, whichever town puts the money in is the only town that is using that money when they're
It is their
withdrawing.
funds
So
and
it's
they're the
therefore it's
body
one-
politic.
Okay, I just
The
want
way
to
it's
clarify.
put, they're the body politic that can save that fund and disperse that fund. It has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
So again, it's just to create those partnerships with our municipal counterparts to say, we understand sometimes our budget is difficult. We worked really hard to make this mechanism to try and deal with that problem.
Similar to the capital fund that we've been trying to develop for the last 3 years.
Yeah, just different control.
Different control, yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, excellent.
Well,
Thank you.
for your support.
Negotiations, we have nothing to report. PAC?
I was out of the state last week and could not attend the PAC meeting, so I don't have a report.
Okay. Policy, we're meeting June 14th. Okay. Revolving funds, no report. Safer.
Safer did meet last night. Those that aren't aware of the agenda, it was primarily focused on the athletic fields, the athletic needs, comprehensively. So it wasn't really, as might sort of be shorthanded as a turf conversation, I'll say. Turf is an issue for some of the sports. We also don't have enough locker rooms. We also don't have enough bathroom facilities at the far fields. This is all sort of parts of that Activitas report that we got in the end of 2020, if you recall. It was really almost more of a public forum than 4 or 5 of us hanging out and pounding through things. We had 28 members of the public show up from various sports groups of all the towns to give us their input in terms of what they think are the problems or the issues or the needs. And clearly when you request people to come out for something like this, everyone was obviously in support of Silver Lake making some efforts to improve the facilities here. So that was really the general conversation and trying to figure out how to move it forward. I've been on the committee for almost 5 years, and I've never had anyone really ask me from the public side, when are we getting turf? It's more of a mumbling from a sports parent, and it's so one-off that a project of this scope and magnitude has never really fit in. And in my eyes, from a financial standpoint, it hasn't fit in either, and it may never really be a good fit. So we were talking about how to get that moving, how to get the funding, either sponsorship or fundraising, or what we can do here in our capital plan. And really the biggest thing that came out of it, as I think this committee is probably well aware right now, is these kind of big projects just need communication. And by communication, you bring in all the parties that have interest, be it the towns and the sports and so forth, to really get some groundswell. So that's where we left it, is hopefully for someone from the public to come to our open forums here at the Silver Lake committees and open the meeting with a big pounding on our door to say, hey, what's the status on athletic field improvements? Have you done any more surveys? Have you done any more evaluations of what we have? For those of you that are aware, the tennis courts came out of that Activitas survey from 2020 and finally that was the first piece to kind of get moving. Martha has all the details in terms of the safety needs for some sports. That turf would be an improvement. We saw it tonight as we came in the back. Lacrosse was on the Sirico field, which is a rarity because the grass needs a few weeks to kind of establish itself in March and April before they go sort of doing a lot of ground balls and digging up the grass that is sort of weak and not yet strong in the roots. So it's good to see them out there, but that is one of the concerns with lacrosse is the bouncing ball on a rough turf field. I mean, on a rough grass field. So that's what we had last night. It was a great meeting, and hopefully someone from outside the committee will begin to drive this and get the communication going, because we can do all the work in the world, and if you go to a town meeting with no support, it's a waste of this committee's extensive efforts and the administration's extensive efforts to kind of get something like this done. So that was the update.
I think the important thing to say, since we're on camera now and we weren't last night, this is going to sound like me being sarcastic, but I'm serious. If there's any crypto billionaires living in Indian Pond who want to build the facilities, it's kind of what we need. I mean, other towns, I mean, it sounds like I'm joking, but it's kind of serious. I mean, we don't have, it's going to be very tough to get all three towns to agree to pay for something that we need. And the scope of what we need to build is going to be substantial, $5 to $10 million. So it's hard for us to do that internally. There are a lot of school districts where they just have generous benefactors who actually do that. Like down on the Cape, they've built some phenomenal athletic fields and whatnot. We need that same thing here, because I think otherwise it's going to be a really tough sell with the just the financial climate that we're in now, never mind what we're going to be in a year or two.
Yeah. I think when we looked at Activitas, if some of you haven't seen it, because it was before you joined the committee, the range was from a $2 million project for a field, for example, to almost $10 million to kind of everything that they saw problems with. I mentioned the bathrooms down in the far fields. We can do a porta potty with a wall for like $100,000, or we can plumb it and put electricity out there and make it a permanent facility out there for ADA compliant and everything else, and you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And those are missing. And we know from our capital plan this year, we're putting $75,000 into Sirico to make that ADA compliant. So once we start looking at other fields and other needs, that ADA overlay sometimes comes in. Parking sometimes comes in on the backfields. So it's more than just, I wanted to make sure I framed it right. It isn't just turf. It's all that ancillary bleachers, refreshment stand at Sirico, press box. Martha mentioned this last night, for those who aren't aware. We had a request and an inquiry, and we looked into doing a press box up above for cameras to kind of, videotape and everything, and it has to be ADA compliant to get up there. Now that requires either a very long ramp or a $50,000 elevator. Those are the can of worms and the sort of what I'll call ancillary needs that fit into some of these projects with a price tag goes from, $1 million turf to, oh no, it's $1 million turf and $300,000 of additional needs from compliance and what have you. So hopefully the public will continue the conversation for us. If not, then I think this meeting did its job of trying to figure out what people want. That's one thing we need to do.
Good. Excellent. Thank you for that, Chris.
Welcome.
Treasurer's report?
Yes, total accounts payable was $1,121,938.27. Total payroll is $1,672,224.68, bringing the grand total to $2,794,162.95.
Okay. And thank you. And Union 31, we know that we have just met. Single signature warrants?
There were warrants that were electronically sent out after the last meeting, 2 warrants totaling $1,721,242.99. That was sent to the superintendent and our subcommittee of science. And their return. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now, before we review anything else, the elephant that we've joked about a little bit in the room. We have a couple of very dear and tremendously contributing members that this is your last evening. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's going to want to say something, but I have sat on committees for nearly 20 years now, and I have met and been exposed and worked with wonderful members of the community, honestly, wonderful people. I cannot believe in July I'm not going to see you two. You have given so much of your intellect, your time, and quite frankly, your heart to Silver Lake. And there are no words to thank you enough for doing that.
Thank you.
I mentioned the name John Creed with reverence, but I know how to get Eric, and it's to tell him that Joe's proud. And I had the privilege of sitting next to Joe Chaves here at Silver Lake.
Yeah.
It's the first time I was introduced to this big book of MGLs that cover school policy and school law for the state of Massachusetts, and he told me if I wanted to be effective that I need to memorize that book. I've endeavored to do so ever since he challenged me. But when Joe passed and Eric joined us, just knowing how much Eric was hurting from the loss of his mentor, I just want to say that Joe would be really proud of what you've done for your community and for the kids of these 3 towns over the years you've been on Silver Lake. And I will desperately miss your counsel and your friendship at the table, but I will continue to call on it from afar. And Chris, you son of a gun, the work you did with the 3 towns this year,
Yeah.
many people have tried to do what you did this year, and the level of communication and respect that I heard you deliver to the towns and then deliver back to you on Silver Lake's behalf was amazing and astounding. I had you pegged to be the next chair of this committee, and I regret that I'll never have the opportunity to put a motion forth for you to sit in that chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I would like to thank both Eric and Chris for their support over the past few years, getting to know them, and I will miss them and their support, not only with SAFER and with negotiations. We spend a lot of time in negotiations. And I appreciate their expertise and their kindness and their genuine ability to support our schools and the care that they brought to every endeavor that they have. The cupcakes are to celebrate you and as part of our tradition, and also Principal Dupio, as he announced at our last meeting. He's going to be moving on, and we also want to thank him for his service to our school for the past 11 years. So thank you all.
Thank you, all of you.
I'll just add, because I represent the other Kingston contingents over here. First of all, Amy and Michael, you have huge shoes to fill. So
Literally.
I'm glad you got to see some of their, like literally, you should see the size of Eric's feet. But I think that people, when you say like, oh, I'm on a school committee, I think people take it, sort of lightly, like it's some easy thing that you got yourself involved in. And it is intimidating. Your responsibility is huge. and you need a mentor, and you need 2 mentors, and you need 3 mentors or 10 mentors. And so, I mean, you know, I came on the negotiations, and Eric, like, gosh, thank God you were there, because it's really far more complicated than people ever think it is, and we have to show the respect to our professionals and our staff, and you do that every single time you're on a meeting with them. You know, you really understand the complexity of what they're going through and what we want to do for our school community, and I just can't tell you how much that mentorship has helped. And we've been through a lot of sessions together. Right, John?
We have.
And the idea that I know people think about facilities here, I mean, it's huge. And, you know, what you're able to do, Chris, to keep this all coordinated with that and with CTE, and it's an enormous job. I mean, I don't know, how many acres is this campus? 16? You know, how many buildings do we have? How much safety things? It's not big enough. Like, you are the king of the castle, and you're leaving us.
I'm still in town.
All right. Well, I want to appreciate both of you for being mentors in a variety of different ways to all of us on the school committee, not just me, but I wish you luck and happiness in your future endeavors, and please don't be strangers. So we expect you in July in one of those seats, just to keep us in line. Not at the beach. So thank you.
Well, you know, if I may.
Absolutely.
So, well, I just want to thank John. I think you and I are going to have to do some Google Meets just to, you know, for old time's sake, you know, every couple of months. But I just want to say joining this committee was definitely overwhelming, but Joe Chaves had encouraged me to run. I had left the elementary school committee, ran for this committee, and then after he passed, I was actually off the elementary school committee, but only for a few months, and then, so the chair position was open. We were in the middle of negotiating a contract, and it was just he and I, and then he was just gone suddenly. So I went back just to help do the contract, and then ended up staying there another 6 years.
It's like the mafia.
It is like the mafia. You can't leave. But I really relied heavily on the mentors that I had here. You know, Paula and Jason and John Creed was on the committee when I joined. And you do really learn a lot from people, and from people that you may not always agree with. I think, you know, the key component to make this committee, to make any committee work, is that people are respectful and you work through. You're not always going to agree, and you might be really and disagree all the time, but if you can just get along, you push through and you're able to resolve it. But, you know, I'm super thrilled with who we have on the committee now and the people joining, both Amy and Michael. I think you guys are set up for continuing to do great things, and I really also want to appreciate all of the staff. You know, all 4 of my kids went through kindergarten through 12th grade here, and it's a wonderful school system. You guys and all you paras, you do phenomenal work. I mean, I know what kind of work you guys do. Have all the respect in the world for the work that you guys do, and all the teachers, all the staff, the administration, everybody. So just want to say thank you for everything you guys did for my kids and my family, but also for what you continue to do for the kids coming up in the years to come. And I will definitely always be around for anybody who has questions about anything, negotiations or anything else. But don't ask me to run anytime soon.
You're not changing your cell phone number, are you?
Right.
Chris, any parting words?
I just say thank you. I mean, for me, it's continuing on, you know, what was started before me. And you got to give the effort, you got to put the work in. That's all it is. That simple.
Are we allowed to call you? Like, you didn't give that offer that Eric just gave?
I think if you leave my Silver Lake email open, I'll maybe respond to that. But no, yeah, absolutely. My cell phone's available.
All righty. Well, thank you, gentlemen. So,
Well, let's let you two
incredibly
motion
much.
to adjourn then, into executive session.
Are we there?
I don't know. I think we're there.
We are. We don't need a executive session tonight, so.
Do you want to make the motion?
Go ahead.
All right, so I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I threatened it.